Ross wandered through the vast mansion, eager to find Julie, but initially without success. While conversing with Anne, the housekeeper, he uncovered the truth about Julie's relationship with her mother, who was battling Alzheimer's. Upon reaching the door of the room, a surprising scene awaited him. Julie and her mother were... Do you want to unravel the secrets behind this intriguing story? Then follow along with me. Hello, dear viewers. Welcome to the Real Speak Stories channel. Get ready to dive into a story full of twists and mysteries. Ross was returning home after another exhausting day at the office, leading the company he had inherited from his father. The weight of responsibility was palpable on his shoulders, and even tired, his mind continued to work, planning the next steps for the company. Known for his dedication and professionalism, Ross kept his personal life private. As he parked his car in the garage of his spacious house, he let out a long sigh, feeling the loneliness that pervaded the silent environment. The only person he truly connected with was his mother, Margarida, whose health was rapidly deteriorating due to advanced Alzheimer's. Upon entering the house, with dusk approaching, he announced his arrival without expecting to find the housekeeper still present. Normally, Anne would have already left, but to his surprise, she was still there. "Oh, Mr. Ross, I was waiting to talk about Mrs. Margarida," Anne said, with a concerned tone, anticipating the difficult conversation about Ross's mother. "How is she today, Anne?" he inquired, fearing the answer. "The same, sir. But she asked for you several times today. I think it would be good for you to spend some time with her, even if she doesn't remember afterwards," Anne suggested. Ross agreed, feeling a pang of guilt for not dedicating as much time as he should to his mother. "I'll go see her now," he affirmed, heading towards Margarida's room. Upon entering, he found his mother gazing out the window with a distant expression, seated in her armchair. "Mum, it's me, Ross," he said softly, masking the pain upon seeing Margarida's state. She turned her head slowly, her gaze momentarily confused, until a brief recognition lit up her eyes. "Ross," she murmured, her voice weak but full of affection. "Yes, Mom, it's me. How are you feeling?" he asked, holding her hand. The conversation was brief and confused, but for Ross, every moment was precious, a painful reminder of times past. As he left his mother's room, he felt the weight of loneliness even stronger. The large house seemed more like an echo of memories than a home. Sitting on his bedroom couch, he reflected on his life. Despite all his professional success, he felt a profound lack of true connection. He couldn't help but wonder if this was all his life amounted to, work and caring for his mother. He wanted more, but didn't know where to look. That night, after a solitary dinner in the vast dining room, Ross decided to take a walk through the forest surrounding the property. The mansion, with its many empty rooms and corridors, seemed to imprison him in his own reflections and loneliness. The forest, on the other hand, offered a refuge, a place where he could breathe and free himself from the burdens he carried. Putting on a coat, he set out for the hill. The fresh air immediately calmed him, the sounds of nature replacing the oppressive silence of the mansion. Walking aimlessly, Ross allowed his thoughts to wander. He reflected on his life, on his mother's illness, and on the loneliness that consumed him. Despite everything, that moment of peace was something he longed for. As he advanced along the path, the moonlight guided his steps between the trees. The sound of leaves under his feet and the occasional song of a night bird were the only sounds breaking the silence. Ross pondered the simplicity of nature and how, despite being the owner of a successful company, he longed for something as basic as companionship and understanding. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a faint sound. Ross stopped, trying to identify the origin. It was a soft, restrained sob. He followed the sound until he found a small figure huddled under a tree. A girl, crying alone in the darkness of the forest. With caution, he approached. "Hey, are you okay? Why are you here alone?" His voice was gentle, trying not to startle the girl. The little one looked up, surprised and a bit frightened. "I got lost," she said, her voice muffled by tears. "I don't know how to get back home." Ross felt a wave of compassion for the girl. "Don't worry, I'll help you get back home. What's your name?" He tried to appear as non-threatening as possible, crouching down to her level. "Julie," she replied, wiping her tears. He reached out his hand. "I'm Ross. Come on, I'll walk you home." As they walked, Ross felt a strange sense of purpose. Concern for the lost girl temporarily took him out of his own troubles. Along the way, Ross noticed the condition of Julie's clothes for the first time. Though clean, they were simple and worn, indicating a reality much different from his own. "Julie, where is your home? Do you have any idea which direction?" Ross asked, expecting to hear the name of a street or nearby neighborhood. However, the girl's response surprised him. "My home is a little cardboard house I made. I think it's a bit far from here, in a place where no one else wants to be. I know where it is, but I don't really remember how to get there," she said, with a glint of pride in her eyes. Julie's innocence and satisfaction with something as simple as a cardboard house left Ross speechless. He tried to process the information, realizing the gravity of the situation. The girl before him didn't have a home in the traditional sense, but rather an improvised shelter, vulnerable to all kinds of danger. "Do you live there alone?" He couldn't hide the concern in his voice. "Yes, but I like it, you know. I did everything by myself. There's even a window," Julie replied, unaware of the seriousness of her condition. Ross felt a lump in his throat. The girl's strength and innocence were admirable, but the idea of letting her return to such a place deeply troubled him. "Julie, it's very cold at night and it's already late. Would you like to spend the night at my house? Tomorrow we can go see your cardboard house and see what we can do to help," Ross suggested, trying to sound welcoming without alarming the girl. She looked at him suspiciously, but there was a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to be a bother," Julie said timidly. Ross nodded with a smile. "I'm sure, Julie. Let's go. It'll be an adventure." When they arrived at the mansion, Julie's reaction was one of pure enchantment. Her eyes widened, and with a delighted smile she exclaimed, "Wow! This place looks like a fairy tale castle." Ross couldn't help but let out a genuine smile, infected by the joy and simplicity of the girl. It was rare for him to witness such spontaneity and genuine admiration. This brief and simple moment brought him a sense of joy he hadn't felt in a long time. Guiding Julie through the grand entrance, he approached Anne, the housekeeper, hoping she could help with the unexpected situation. Anne, always serious and professional, raised her eyebrows in surprise upon seeing the girl next to Ross. "Mr. Ross, what does this mean? Who is this girl?" she asked, her voice conveying more than simple curiosity. Ross quickly explained the situation, hoping for understanding and support. However, Anne's reaction was very different from what he expected. "You can't just bring a stranger home, sir. She might have diseases. She could be dangerous to all of us, especially to your mother," Anne reprimanded, clearly concerned about the implications of Ross's decision. Anne's response surprised and irritated Ross. He wasn't accustomed to being questioned in his own home, especially when it came to helping someone in need. Anne expected more understanding from his part. "Julie is just a child who needs help. We can't turn our backs on her," he replied firmly, initiating a brief argument. Anne insisted on the risks, and Ross on the need for compassion. Finally, Ross concluded the conversation. "Anne, you will prepare some clean clothes for Julie. Give her a warm bath, and ensure she has a decent meal tonight," he ordered, his voice making it clear that there would be no further discussion. Anne, though clearly displeased, reluctantly agreed. "As you wish, sir," she said with reluctance. While it was rare for Ross to assert his will in this way, he knew he couldn't, in good conscience, do any less for Julie. The housekeeper withdrew to carry out the orders, and Ross turned his attention back to the girl, who watched the interaction with a mix of confusion and admiration. Ross knelt beside Julie, smiling at her. "Don't worry, we'll take care of you," he said, trying to alleviate any fear or concern she might have. The girl, still impressed by the grandeur of the castle, smiled back, an expression of gratitude and relief crossing her face. In that moment, Ross felt a deep certainty in his heart. Regardless of the challenges he faced, helping Julie was the right decision. Shortly after, Julie was taken to the temporary room Ross had arranged. It seemed like a palace to her eyes. She jumped on the soft bed, touching the pillows and exploring every corner with a curiosity and joy that only a child possesses. "It's bigger than my cardboard house," she exclaimed, laughing, as she ran back and forth, admiring the grandeur of the room. After a warm bath which dispelled the cold and discomfort from her small bones, Julie put on the clean and comfortable clothes that Anne had prepared. The clothes were simple, but to her it was like getting ready for a party. Sitting on the bed, she devoured the food that was served to her, each bite showing her appreciation and gratitude. When Ross returned to the room to check on her, he found Julie lying down, with eyes shining with happiness and satisfaction. "Everything okay here?" he asked, feeling a wave of contentment seeing the girl's transformation in such a short time. "Yes, everything is so beautiful and rich. Thank you so much, Ross," she replied, with a sincerity that warmed his heart. "You don't have to call me Ross, Julie. Ross is just fine," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. The girl felt a bit shy, now that the reality of her situation was starting to sink in. "Ross, can I ask you something? Is this house a real castle?" The childlike curiosity shining in her eyes. Ross laughed, delighted by the question. "Not exactly a castle, but it's my home and it's very big and beautiful, isn't it?" he replied, letting Julie immerse herself in the magic of that night. "Tonight, the house is yours," he said, remembering how much he enjoyed having someone to share his large and lonely house with, even if it was just for one night. "Would you like me to read you a bedtime story?" he offered, hoping to make her night even more special. Julie's eyes lit up at the proposal. "I would love that!" she exclaimed, snuggling into the covers. Ross chose a book from the room's bookshelf and began to read, his soft and soothing voice filling the space. Julie listened attentively, and eventually her eyes started to grow heavy until she drifted off to sleep with a serene smile on her face. At dawn, the sunlight streaming into the room woke Julie from a peaceful and deep sleep, the most comfortable she had ever had in her short life. The peace of the night was interrupted by the voice of the housekeeper, Anne, who unceremoniously opened the curtains and announced that it was time to get up. "Hurry up, girl. Time to eat," she said in a tone that brooked no argument. Julie, still sleepy, rubbed her eyes and asked, "Has he already left for work?" "Yes, and he won't be back until late," Anne replied bluntly and coldly, offering no consolation or further explanation. Julie's disappointment was evident. She had hoped to see Ross in the morning, perhaps share breakfast with him, like a small makeshift family. But, recognizing the futility of arguing with Anne, she forced herself to get up and get ready for the day. With laziness but obedience, Julie got out of bed still thinking about Ross and the kindness he had shown. She brushed her teeth and dressed herself, a little awkwardly, still not accustomed to the luxury and formality of the mansion. The housekeeper waited impatiently to take her to the breakfast table, a daily ritual that Julie had never experienced before. Sitting at the table, Julie marveled at the quantity and variety of food, so different from her routine of scarcity. Yet Anne's presence made the meal less enjoyable. The housekeeper, maintaining her cold tone, instructed Julie, "Don't you dare leave the room under any circumstances. I don't have time to babysit," she said, making it clear that any disobedience would be unacceptable. Julie nodded, pretending to agree with Anne's instructions. However, in her heart, the girl was already planning to explore the mansion as soon as she had the chance. The curiosity and desire for adventure were too strong to be contained by strict orders. She imagined the secrets the big house could hide, the nooks and crannies still unknown to her. Anne took the girl back to the room after the meal. At that moment, Julie felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness at the prospect of disobeying the rules. She knew she could get into trouble if caught, but the adventure called her name, and the possibility of discovering more about Ross's world was too tempting to resist. As soon as the door closed behind Anne, Julie was already planning her next move, her heart beating a little faster. Julie pressed her ear against the door of the room, attentive to the sounds of the waking house. The sound of Anne's footsteps fading down the hallway encouraged her. She waited for a few moments, making sure the housekeeper was far enough away, and then, with a determined sigh, she quietly opened the door and stepped out into the hallway. Ross's mansion was like a maze of wonders to Julie. Every corridor, every open door revealed something new and exciting. She explored with eyes wide open, curiosity guiding each step. At one moment, she stopped to open drawers full of mysterious objects and relics from a distant past. At another, she peeked into huge jars that seemed capable of hiding secrets. The paintings on the walls told stories of the past, with gazes following Julie as she passed. The girl wondered about the people in the paintings, imagining their lives and adventures. Each room she explored seemed to whisper old tales, filling her mind with questions and wonders. It was during this exploration that Julie found the slightly ajar door of Margarida's room. With a mixture of curiosity and excitement, she entered, finding the elderly woman sitting in an armchair, staring into nothingness. "Hello," said Julie gently, approaching. Margarida turned her face in the direction of the voice, but her eyes showed no recognition or understanding. Trying to start a conversation, Julie continued, "I'm Julie. I'm a friend of Ross." Margarida remained silent, her mind lost in mazes of memories that could no longer be easily accessed. The girl sat beside her, recounting stories of the forest, of her cardboard house, and of how Ross found her. Despite the lack of response, Julie felt a strange connection, as if somehow her words offered comfort to the woman. However, restlessness soon overtook Julie again. The calm of the room was comforting, but youthful curiosity wouldn't allow her to stay quiet for long. So, she turned her attention to the surroundings, determined to discover what else that space held. The drawers and dressers revealed little beyond common objects and some dusty treasures, relics of a time that didn't concern her. None of it, however, quenched her thirst for adventure. It was then that her eyes fixed on a massive wardrobe at the end of the room, a piece of furniture that seemed to hold secrets in its intricately carved wood. With hesitant hands, Julie opened one of its doors, revealing an interior that was a treasure in itself. Inside, a guitar lay, promising forgotten melodies. But it was a very old notebook that completely captured her attention. Carefully, she removed the notebook from its hiding place, feeling the weight of history in her hands. The pages yellowed with time seemed to whisper stories waiting to be rediscovered. However, the moment of discovery was abruptly interrupted by Anne's voice in the corridor. Julie's heart raced, and instinctively she hid the notebook under her clothes, fearing the housekeeper might stop her. When Anne entered the room and saw her, the reprimand was immediate. Anne burst into Margarida's room with an authoritarian tone, reprimanding Julie for her disobedience. The housekeeper, imposing her authority, caused Julie to recoil with a guilty and fearful expression. Julie tried to justify her presence in the room, but she knew her words wouldn't be enough to apologize. With firmness, Anne led Julie back to her room, reiterating the importance of obeying the rules and avoiding exploring unknown areas. Julie's adventure had been interrupted, but the notebook she had hidden under her clothes was still a mystery waiting to be unraveled. Determined to investigate, Julie retreated to her temporary room, eager to examine the old notebook. Hidden from Anne's sight and reprimands, Julie opened the notebook carefully, feeling her heart race with the excitement of discovery. The yellowed pages of the notebook promised to reveal ancient secrets, a treasure trove of memories that defied the relentless forgetfulness caused by Margarida's Alzheimer's. As she flipped through the pages, Julie discovered Margarida's passion for music. Among personal reflections, she found lyrics and melodies written down, revealing an artistic soul seeking expression through art. Margarida wasn't just a mother fighting a terrible disease. She was a composer whose emotions found solace in music. Julie then came across a special dedication to Ross, a song Margarida had composed especially for him. The song's simple lyrics conveyed deep emotion, touching Julie's heart. "In your eyes I find my light, like a star shining in the sky. Your laughter is my peace, it's the luck that life brings me. You've grown so much, my little one. But in my heart I always hold you, and with love I wrap you in my arms, and I love you without fear of loving, my little bird. I'll go far, I'll go high and far, I'll live, for even far away I hold you forever, and through these notes I'll reach you." As Julie closed the notebook, she felt deeply moved by the discovery. That song wasn't just a tribute from a mother to her son. It was a reminder of what Margarida had once been, of her love for her child, and of her passions for art. But now, all those traits that once defined that woman had simply been forgotten. In that moment, Julie knew she had found something truly special. She decided that, somehow, she needed to help, but chose to ponder how she could achieve that goal. As the night approached its end, Ross returned from work, happy to find the girl. He proposed a walk through the forest, an attempt to reconnect with the peace they had shared the previous night. For Julie, this was the perfect opportunity to broach the subject that now occupied all her thoughts. Walking side by side through the forest, she gathered the courage to delicately bring up the matter. Observing the girl gather courage, Ross realized she had something on her mind. Julie then asked Ross if his mother was a composer, leaving him surprised. He questioned how she knew that, and Julie explained that she found out while wandering through the house and finding a guitar and a notebook in her room. To dispel any suspicion, she quickly added that she liked music. Intrigued, Ross shared about his mother's love for music and how she expressed her feelings through it. He even revealed that she composed a song for him when he was a child, humming the melody to Julie. Listening in silence, Julie felt touched by the music, as if she were touching a part of Margarida's soul, shared with her through the melody. Driven by emotion, Julie revealed that she also knew how to play the guitar and shared her own memories and experiences with Ross. The connection between them strengthened as they shared stories and emotions. The next morning, Julie felt renewed during breakfast, as Anne served the food in her usual silence. Seizing the opportunity, she broached the delicate subject. "Anne, is there any way to help Mrs. Margarida remember things again?" Julie asked, her innocence mixed with persistent hope. The question caught Anne off guard, causing her to pause before responding. "Dear, Mrs. Margarida's Alzheimer's disease is incurable. We cannot reverse it," Anne explained, trying to be direct without discouraging Julie. Observing the girl's serious expression, Anne noticed her unwavering determination. "However, music and old memories sometimes have a special power," Anne suggested, admiring Julie's determination. Excited about the idea, Julie began to devise a plan. Remembering Margarida's songbook and the melody Ross had sung, she thought music might be the key to unlocking Margarida's dormant memories. Convinced of her mission, Julie persuaded Anne to allow her to spend the day with Margarida. Armed with hope and a plan in mind, she entered the room where Margarida spent most of her time, a silent sanctuary of faded memories. Despite the lack of an immediate response, Julie was not discouraged. She knew these moments of sharing were important, even without visible changes. Determined, she decided to find other ways to help, believing in the power of music and love to break through the barriers of the disease. With this conviction, she had another idea. She returned to her room in search of Margarida's diary, returning to the ladies' room with it in hand. She thought that, by seeing her own lyrics and melodies, Margarida might find a way back to the memories the disease had stolen. Carefully, she opened the notebook. Julie's heart sank as Margarida remained unresponsive to the music, despite her earnest efforts. She had hoped that the combination of melody and lyrics would stir some memory in Margarida's mind, but it seemed that even the most beautiful of melodies couldn't penetrate the fog of her Alzheimer's. Feeling a sense of disappointment, Julie sat quietly beside Margarida, unsure of what else she could do to help. She watched as Margarida gazed into the distance, lost in her own world of forgotten memories. Suddenly, Julie remembered something Ross had mentioned the night before. He had spoken about how music had always been a source of comfort and connection for his mother, even in the darkest of times. Inspired by this memory, Julie decided to try something different. Taking Margarida's hand gently, Julie closed her eyes and began to hum a familiar tune, one that Ross had sung the previous night. It was a simple melody, but one that held a deep significance for both Ross and Margarida. As Julie hummed, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She imagined herself as a bridge, connecting Margarida to the memories that lay buried deep within her mind. She hoped that, somehow, this musical connection would help Margarida remember, if only for a moment. To Julie's surprise, as she hummed, she felt Margarida's hand tighten around hers ever so slightly. It was a small gesture, but one that filled Julie with hope. Perhaps, she thought, there was still a chance to reach Margarida through the power of music. And so, Julie continued to hum, pouring all her love and determination into the melody, hoping against hope that it would be enough to bring a spark of recognition to Margarida's eyes. Ross returned home after a day of work, anxiously looking for Julie, whose absence from her room left him restless. When he asked Anne about the girl's whereabouts, concern and curiosity mingled in his voice. Anne, with serenity, explained that Julie had spent the whole day in Margarida's room, trying to help her recover. Intrigued, Ross inquired about the day's events. Anne, choosing her words carefully, reported that Julie spent hours playing the guitar and singing to Margarida, possibly inspired by her mother's diary and sheet music. Ross felt a mix of hope and anxiety as he considered the possibility of Julie reaching his mother, who had been isolated in her own world for years. Before they even reached the room, a soft and harmonious melody filled the hallway, immediately recognized by Ross as his mother's voice. Moved by intense emotion, he followed the sound until he found a scene he had never imagined. His mother, Margarida, singing along with Julie. Tears streamed freely from Ross's eyes, witnessing a moment of connection between generations, propelled by the shared music in the woods. Margarida's fragile smile, filled with affection and recognition, brought immense relief to Ross, who remained by the door, moved by the scene. Margarida's unexpected words, though simple, were like a balm to his soul, reaffirming his decision to welcome Julie into his family. Ross paused, turning to face her directly, wanting her to see the sincerity and love in his eyes. "Julie, how would you feel if I adopted you, if you became initially my daughter?" Julie's reaction was immediate and intense. Her eyes widened in surprise, then quickly filled with pure joy. "Do you really want to be my new daddy?" She could barely contain her excitement, a wide smile lighting up her face. "Yes, absolutely," replied Ross, his own smile mirroring hers. "I would love that, Julie. You're already a part of my family and my heart, but I want it to be official, for everyone to know." With a cry of joy, Julie threw herself into Ross's arms, embracing him with all her might. "I'd love that, Ross. Being a princess and living in the castle. It's going to be amazing to have a daddy again." Her voice, though altered by emotion, was filled with happiness and anticipation for the future that now lay ahead of her. Julie's musical moments with Margarida, though brief, became a source of comfort and joy for everyone in the mansion. These fleeting moments of clarity for Margarida were a small cure for the wounds left by the progression of her disease. For Ross, it was a sign that even with the distance imposed by Alzheimer's, true love can never be destroyed. Thus, the days in the mansion were no longer the same. They were days of learning, of music, of shared laughter, and of quiet moments of silent gratitude. Ross, Julie, Anne, and even Margarida, in her moments of clarity, formed a united family not only by blood, but by heart.